How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the show. We are back after a long time. The Raiders are officially done with their draft. We're going to go over all the draft selections. The Raiders, this whole entire offseason, have been trying to get better in a lot of areas, and they did get better. There's no doubt about it. They got better in free agency with the linebackers. They needed linebackers so badly. This team had no one. They had no one there. I mean, come on. When you're starting Will Compton, no offense to Will Compton, but when Will Compton is your starting linebacker, you have issues. So the Raiders went out. They got some, in my opinion, really good linebackers. They paid a lot for them, but still, they got them. They got Nick Kwiatkowski. He's pretty good. Linebacker formerly of Cleveland. They got Corey Littleton. So they got better at the linebacker position. They also went out and got better at safety, so they wouldn't have to bring in a guy like DJ Swearinger in week 12. So, they got Damaris Randall. They got Jeff Heath, who I don't know if he'll start or what he'll do. But either way, they got better there. And also remember, they have Jonathan Abram, who we really don't know much about. We've seen him play for 2 quarters. I don't like when people already assume this guy's going to be a superstar. I hate that. I really do. I hate when people are already labeling him as some great player when we really don't know. He's basically going to be a rookie whenever this football season starts. So we shall see how he ends up. But right now, Jonathan Abram hopefully ends up being good. He's going to be there. They're going to be fine. They're going to be fine at safety. They needed to get better at cornerback. They tried that in free agency. They lost 3 times to 3 different players in a bidding war to get Byron Jones, Chris Harris Jr. They just kept losing. So they didn't get any cornerbacks in free agency. So we kind of knew what they were going to do in the draft, which I hate when teams do this. They took a cornerback in the first round, but we'll get to that in 1 second. Let's first go over what they did before that, which was they drafted Henry Ruggs. Now, I like this pick. You could have went with Lamb. You could have went with Judy. You could have went any of these guys. But they end up going with Ruggs, who is the fastest wide receiver. John Gruden wants a guy like Tyreek Hill. He likes speed. This is what they missed when AB, Antonio Brown, went bananas last season. When he went off his rocker, they had to take out a bunch of plays out of the playbook because they had no one to take the top off. They had no more speed. Now they have that guy. So Derek Carr is happy. He's definitely going to be the quarterback unless he does something dumb. And then the Raiders did, by the way, go get Marcus Mariota, which is a little bit weird. But they got him as a backup in case Derek Carr starts not really doing much, like throwing the ball away on 4th and 1 into the dirt instead of trying to make something happen. So they got Marcus Mariota for that. I think Derek Carr is going to be fine. I really do. Especially, they know, John Gruden knows, they don't need him to do much. They just need him to be accurate, be smart, and make the right decisions. They don't need this guy to be Joe Montana. John Gruden has won on offense with quarterbacks who are nowhere as near as good as Derek Carr. Remember, he won a Super Bowl with Brad Johnson. Yes, you can say, oh, it's because he had a great defense. You still need to score points to win a football game, and they managed to score a lot of points. You Raider fans should remember they blew out the Raiders in the Super Bowl, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Brad Johnson was lighting you up. Brad Johnson. So don't tell me Derek Carr's not better than Brad Johnson. So you'll be fine with Derek Carr, at least for this season. We don't know what's going to happen after this season. But you'll be fine with Derek Carr because the Raiders surrounded this guy with a lot of weapons. You got Darren Waller still. You still got Josh Jacobs. They go out and they get Henry Ruggs. This guy has the speed to pretty much take the whole top off. Darren Waller's going to be open. Don't forget about Hunter Renfrow. They still got Tyree Williams. Hopefully he can catch a ball this season, and he'll be okay. The Raiders are going to be just fine at wide receiver. And by the way, when we go through this draft, they were not even done at wide receiver. John Gruden is giving Derek Carr everything he can possibly have. If Derek Carr fails, it is on him this season. There is no doubt about it. So we shall see what happens. So the first round, it pretty good. Now, the Raiders could have traded that 12th pick and went down to the 14th pick and got a bunch of stuff. They should have really made that trade because they could have got Henry Ruggs no matter what. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, looks like they wanted an offensive lineman. They should have made the trade, to be honest with you, but they did not do that. So we'll see. I think they should have. I do. I think they should have made that trade. They should have got in the third round, but they got what they needed to get in this draft. Let's not kid ourselves. They got what they needed. They got a really good wide receiver that has the speed. Now, the 19th pick, this is where I have a problem. They go and they reach for a cornerback. Now, we know they need cornerbacks, even though, remember, let's not forget, Mike Mayock, he drafted Mullins last year. They got Nixon. They got Isaiah Johnson. They still got Lawson. I mean, they got all these players. But they drafted Mullins, Johnson. They got Keyshawn Nixon. You drafted all these guys, and they still need a cornerback. So hopefully this guy who they reached for, who would have been there, by the way, in the second round, who knows? Damon Arnett might have been there in the third round. We don't know. I'm not saying he's not going to be a good NFL player. We don't know. That's why I don't really like giving grades. It's impossible to know. It really is. I'll give a grade after the first year I see them in the NFL. But it's really hard to grade any team's performance in a draft when we have yet to see them play in the NFL. It's kind of stupid. I hate giving grades. I mean, come on. If you look at when the Patriots drafted Tom Brady, did they get a good grade? I mean, they probably didn't, right? They got, 6 Super Bowl rings out of it? So it's stupid. It really is. We don't know how these guys are going to turn out. I just hate taking a cornerback in the first round. I would never, ever do that. Never. Because to me, cornerbacks, they're always free agents after 4 or 5 years. They're always around. Yes, there's some better cornerbacks than, we know this. But for the most part, every time a team wins a Super Bowl, they don't have one really awesome cornerback, if you notice. It's not one superstar guy. It's just a bunch of guys that are pretty solid. And that's what the Raiders need here. Now, hopefully, Damon Arnett ends up being really, really good. I hope he is. But it was a reach. It really was. I would not have done it. I would have never have done it. If I was the Raiders, to be completely honest with you, I would have figured a way to get Ruggs and Lamb, both of them. Draft both of those guys, you are set for years to come. Instead of Dallas Cowboys get Lamb, and they are loaded at wide receiver. I like Lamb, I really do. I don't know why he fell so far, but I like him. I think he's going to be really good. I think Ruggs is going to be really good. I think all three of them are going to end up being really good. But Damon Arnett, a cornerback from Ohio State, listen, you just had a cornerback from Ohio State, and you traded him. His name was Garyon Conley. You basically just drafted Garyon Conley. That's what you did in the first round. It makes no sense to me. It really doesn't. It makes no sense at all why they would take him so early in the first round. But the good news after that, they take 2 more wide receivers. Like I said, Derek Carr has nothing to complain about here. They take Bowden, who's pretty good. But they take this guy who I was shocked was still around. I thought he would go a lot earlier. This guy is a good wide receiver. So they take, like I said, Lynn Bowden Jr. out of Kentucky. This guy can do pretty much everything, by the way. So I can't wait to see what Gruden does with him. I really can't. But after that, they take this guy, Bryan Edwards, who I think, honestly, is going to be a really good wide receiver in the NFL. He's from South Carolina. This guy, he's really, really good. Now, I know it may seem like overkill. The Raiders take so many wide receivers. I mean, you can argue, by the way, that Bowden Jr. there from Kentucky is going to be a running back more than likely. But let's just say he's a wide receiver, just to say it. Either way, Bryan Edwards is really, really good. If you go watch the highlights of him, just watch the highlights. He's going to be a good wide receiver for this team. And I think he's actually going to challenge Tyree Williams for that spot. I think Tyree Williams is in trouble right now. I really do. They loaded up at wide receiver. That's exactly what the Raiders needed to do. They didn't really do it in the free agency, so they had to do it in the draft. That's exactly what they did. They took two guys that are really, really good. And like I said, with Bowden there, if I'm saying his name correctly, he can do pretty much anything. He can play running back. He can play wide receiver. That guy's going to be really good too, and he has a lot of speed. Not to mention you have Hunter Renfrow, like I mentioned before. The Raiders are set at wide receiver. Anyways, after that, the Raiders made some kind of strange moves. They take Tanner Muse. He's a safety out of guess where? Clemson. We know that's a Mike Mayock pick. Now, listen, I don't know what people think about this guy, but he's going to be probably a special teams player. I can't see this guy I just can't see him being anything other than a special teams player. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he ends up being really, really great. I don't know. After that, they take a guard. Obviously, the reason why they take a guard is because they want to get rid of Gabe Jackson. They couldn't trade this guy, by the way. They tried to trade Gabe Jackson about 10 times in this draft. They could not find anyone who would take Gabe Jackson. The reason why it's nothing to do with Gabe Jackson as a player, it's because whoever takes him has to pay him $9.5 million, and no one wants to do that for Gabe Jackson. No one wants to pay him. The Raiders are going to end up having to pay him. What else are you going to do? I mean, it's guaranteed money. You could trade him and not pay him, but if you cut him, you're losing $9.5 million. You might as well play him. So we'll see what happens there with Gabe Jackson going forward. I don't know what's going to happen, to be honest, but it's just weird. Gruden doesn't like him, and I think I know why. I mean, it's pretty obvious. Gruden wants his own players. Gabe Jackson isn't really his own player. I mean, go look at their roster. It's been completely shredded of all McKenzie guys. There's probably, 3 guys standing? Marquell Lee, Nicholas Morrow, or like 4, right? Carr and Gabe Jackson. And I don't think they even consider Derek Carr a McKenzie pick. So we shall see what goes on after that. Then after that, of course, the Raiders were pretty much done. They did take a cornerback after that, another one. Amik Robertson out of, Louisiana Tech, right? Yeah, I believe that's where he's from. Now this guy, another cornerback, by the way. They took 2 wide receivers. They take 2 cornerbacks. Like I said, I don't know what's up with Mullins, Isaiah Johnson, all these other guys. But anyways, they take this guy. He fell. This is a guy that, he was supposed to go probably in the 5th round. He really was. Like 4th or 5th round. They get him at 139, pick 139. And if he wasn't injured, maybe he does go, 3rd round or something like that. I mean, the guy's pretty good. So we will see. He does have a lot of upside. We will see if he can make the team. I think he will. I really do. He looks pretty good, this Robertson. So we shall see. They definitely upgraded their cornerback position. Now, they didn't get a veteran like they wanted in free agency, so they're going to have a young secondary. Remember that. They still got guys like LaMarcus Joyner, who I think this guy's terrible. I really do. I don't know why the coaching staff likes this guy so much, LaMarcus Joyner. I mean, he's awful. Hopefully he plays better, because the Raiders are going to need him to play better. They really are. They're also going to need a better pass rush. That's just logic. I know they're not too high on P.J. Hall right now, but they really didn't do anything to get better there. Hopefully Mo Hurst can step it up. Jonathan Hankins is more as a run guy, but they're going to be able to rotate. Obviously, they got Malik Collins in there, a free agent who I think might be taking P.J. Hall's job. So you got him there, and they got Carl Nassib out there for edge rusher. You got Max Crosby on the other side. Max Crosby's coming off a 10-sack season. So they should be better up front. They should be better at least getting after the quarterback. With the linebackers and the defensive line, the secondary, going to be young, a little bit shaky. But if the defensive line can get after a quarterback, stop the run, the linebackers are going to be a lot better this season. That's not even up for debate. The linebackers will be a lot better. they will be able to at least hold on to teams and not just let, a team score 28 points in one quarter like they did last season. That's not going to happen this season. And the offense got much, much better. Much, much better. I mean, you're going to have Josh Jacobs, like I said, who's going to actually have 2 arms this season. Remember, the guy played with 1 arm, basically, for half the year. So they're gonna be able to do that. They're gonna have Josh Jacobs back there. They brought back Jalen Richard, who's more of a third down, scat back type deal. And like I said, they got that Lynn Bowden out of Kentucky. That guy can do it all. He really can. I would not be surprised if he's lined up as a running back. I really wouldn't. I know they already talked about that they might line him up as a running back. So if he's there, maybe he's an explosive running back to go along with Josh Jacobs. That would be fantastic. And their offense, like I said, can only get better. And the reason why I'm telling you why they can only get better, it's simple logic, like I said. Derek Carr had to throw a lot of short passes. Now, the Raiders are going to do that regardless. But when they had Antonio Brown, they had a package of plays they could always go to. So basically, all Antonio Brown had to do is a go route, basically. Take the top off, maybe have the safety bite on it, and it has guys open underneath. And that's what Derek Carr does well. Remember when he had Michael Crabtree and Amari Cooper in 2016? A lot of success throwing those slant passes to, let's say, Crabtree or sometimes Cooper, whoever is, running at the time. But, even like a guy like Andre Holmes would have success right in the middle of the field, wide open. Or Seth Roberts, wide open in the middle of the field. Sometimes this guy would be, because people were too concerned about Cooper up the top and, Crabtree doing a slant. Before you know, a safety bites and you got a guy wide open in the middle of the field. They're hoping that is Darren Waller this season, or Hunter Renfrow, or a Brian Edwards, or a Tyree Williams. This team is loaded at wide receiver. They are going to be able to throw the football as long as Derek Carr is protected as much as they want. Guys will be open underneath, and they will have an option to throw the ball down the field. Now, I don't expect Derek Carr all of a sudden to be a gunslinger. I really don't. And throwing the ball tons of times down the field, throwing bombs. I don't really think that will happen, but it's going to give them that option to do it every once in a while to keep the defense, the opponent's defense, keep them in check. Because they really could not do that last season. Everything was underneath. Everything. It was run, throw underneath. Run, throw underneath. They know we're throwing to Darren Waller, so let's, push our linebackers back. Drop them back in coverage. Derek Carr makes a mistake. He throws an interception. It was just it kept going on and on and on and on and on. Now they have guys who can get up the field. It's going to free up Darren Waller. It's going to open up the run game. The Raiders should be a lot better team when we enter this 2020 season. They are going to be a better team. I guarantee it. The only way this team is worse than last season is if Derek Carr has a meltdown and is terrible and Marcus Mariota is terrible. That's the only way it could happen. And remember, by the way, don't forget, Nathan Peterman is still a member of the Las Vegas Raiders. So you never know when MVP Peterman is going to enter the game and shock the world. I'm just kidding, but I'm kind of not. I kind of hope that happens, to be honest with you. But anyways, in my opinion, the draft, like I said, I don't give grades because I got to see these guys on the field. But the areas of need that they needed to hit, they were hit. I do wish they would have got another defensive tackle, maybe a defensive end. I know they got some undrafted guys. We'll see how those all pan out. I'm not going to read every single name. But they got some undrafted guys, but we don't know with them. Usually like one makes the team, or sometimes. We don't know. Hopefully they do find maybe one or two, especially if they can find a defensive tackle and a defensive end that can end up being pretty good. That would be fantastic for this team. But right now, how they're set up, I'm telling you, Derek Carr has no excuses. So a lot of pressure is going to come off him, and we're going to switch that pressure onto Jon Gruden. This guy has to show he still has it as a head coach. So I'm going to put the pressure on Jon Gruden because I think Derek Carr is going to be completely fine with the talent he's surrounded with. I think you could put pretty much any quarterback in that situation, and they're going to be fine. I really do. So I don't think Raider fans need to worry about Derek Carr right now. Next season, depending on what happens, let's say the Raiders win 8 games. Then yes, the Raiders are probably going to get a new quarterback. They save a lot more money if they cut Derek Carr next season or trade him or whatever. But this season, he's going to be the guy. He is going to be the quarterback. So we will see what happens with him, but I really don't think he will be a problem. I am more looking at Jon Gruden. Can this guy call a good... Because sometimes, if you notice, some of the plays last season were dumb play calls. They really were. I mean, you can't just make it so simple. Now, I know he will say, well, I didn't have the talent, so I had to dummy it down. I had to run the ball first, second down, and then throw a little short pass on third down and hope we get yards after the catch. I get it. But now you have the talent. Now you have guys like Henry Ruggs III who can literally, you can throw him a 6-yard slant pass and he can take it 80 yards. You got the speed everywhere. You got good route runners on your team. You got a good slot wide receiver. You are completely fine. You got in my opinion, the best running back in the NFL besides Derrick Henry. So these guys are going to be able to compete. They got the speed now to compete with the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I still say the Kansas City Chiefs probably should have never won that Super Bowl, by the way. They got 2 plays they got lucky on. Patrick Mahomes bombed the ball down the sideline and the dude just happened to be there. But either way, they are the champions. And the goal is to beat the champions. You gotta beat the Chiefs. The only way you are gonna beat the Kansas City Chiefs is with speed. And that's exactly what the Raiders went out and did in this draft. Yes, some of these picks are dumb, okay? The Arnett pick was a reach. It was dumb. I'm just gonna tell you. It was dumb. You don't take a guy who's a 3rd round grade on him, who's no one's going to take the 3rd round middle of 2nd round in the 1st round. They definitely reach. There is no argument for it. You can show me all the pro football focus stats you want. The bottom line is no one who works in the NFL had a 1st round grade on the guy. So you can keep throwing out all these stats. You never gave a touchdown at Ohio State. I can find a guy who plays at University of Connecticut that has the same stat. I can show you a guy at Ball State who has the same stat. So quit with that stat because it really does not mean nothing. Okay? They reached for him. You don't have to cry about it. Accept it. They reached for the guy. We all hope he's going to end up being good, but you can't change that fact that they reached for him. Ruggs, I don't believe they reached for him. When I see that, I've seen a couple of these dummy writers write that the Raiders reached for Ruggs. They did not reach for him because they knew those big 3 were going to go, and no one knew when. But they knew it was going to be in the 1st round. They knew it could have been earlier. It could have started at number 6. The Raiders, in my opinion, are lucky Ruggs was there at 12. So they didn't reach for Ruggs. They didn't reach for any of these guys because you never know when teams go on a run for a certain position. It happens every year in the draft. All these teams start taking wide receivers. Next thing you know, 5 of them take wide receivers in a row. Or quarterbacks. It always happens with quarterbacks. 3 teams take quarterbacks in a row. So the Raiders didn't know when that was going to happen. They didn't. So they had to take Ruggs when they took him. And that's probably why they didn't trade with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Even though they would have got I believe they would have got a 2nd round pick. I forget what they would have got. But they would have got a bunch of other selections. They were scared that Ruggs wasn't going to be there, but he probably was going to be there at 14. You know? So that's why I think that's kind of a bonehead decision. But still, does it really matter? They got enough talent on their team through the draft and through free agency where they're going to be fine. And I know, as you heard, there was rumors the Raiders were trying to get Yannick in there from the Jags. And that might still happen, by the way. That has not completely just crashed and burned as I'm recording this. There's still a chance the Raiders can still trade for that guy. He wants out of Jacksonville. I know Jon Gruden loves that guy. But I do know the Raiders have to make sure this guy's not going to be a cancer in the locker room. And I do also know that, because even I was confused at first how they would pay him. The Raiders say they can figure that all out. They have that figured out, actually. So if they went that far to figure out the money situation, it means that they even said they plan on talking about with the Jags about him after the draft. So I would still watch out for that if you're a Raiders fans. I think he would be a great fit. I know they got Nassib, I know they got Max Crosby, but then if you bring that guy in, you can give Max Crosby a break every once in a while. You know what I mean? And keep him fresh. So hopefully they can pull something off. I mean, to me, that guy's worth a first-round pick. I mean, just to me anyways. That guy is a force. Just one first-round pick, by the way. Maybe they can get away with giving a second. I don't know. Who knows? But I'm just saying, he is definitely worth the investment because he's very, very, very good. He really is. Now, I wouldn't give up something like the Bears did for Khalil Mack. And that's just stupid. Because first of all, the Bears were not ready to contend at that time. They didn't have the quarterback. I mean, honestly, I would take Derek Carr over Mitch Trubisky. I really would. They didn't have enough pieces on offense to really make a run. They had a lot of pieces on defense. But listen, in 2020, I'm sorry, it's not all about defense anymore. We just watched the Kansas City Chiefs win the Super Bowl. They did it pretty much all on offense throughout the entire season. That's how it works now. Speed kills. You need to score touchdowns. The Raiders, by the way, they need to score touchdowns. I don't care about Derek Carr's stats. I hate when people throw that. I know the Raiders like to use that as talking points, and some Derek Carr fans like to use that as talking points. Listen, most of those stats are padded because the Raiders were down 4 touchdowns. And most of the defenders on the other team back up. They don't mind giving up a 6-yard pass. So he's going to have a high completion rate. I mean, bad quarterbacks, when they're getting blown out, are going to have a high completion rate. That's just how it works. That's how it works, in case you didn't know. I'm not saying Derek Carr is terrible, but I'm saying he struggled last season. He made some bad decisions. If he makes good decisions, and the Raiders did surround him with talent, he can be good enough. The Raiders can win with this guy. I know they can. They surrounded him. What do you think? Why do you think John Gruden surrounded this guy with nothing but speed and guys that can catch the football? Why do you think they drafted so many wide receivers? They did this, and they did this to help this guy. And I think it will help him. And they also brought in a backup plan just in case it doesn't help him. And Marcus Mariota, a guy who uses his legs that can be a dual threat. Now, I personally do not think Marcus Mariota is that great. I really don't. I never did. But some could say, and they have, that Marcus Mariota never had talent in Tennessee, which is kind of true. But still, if I had to take one or the other, I'm still taking Derek Carr. I think his arm is better, but Marcus Mariota can use his legs better. And I really do wish, that Derek Carr would use his legs, because the guy can do it. He can do it. He just can't be stupid and try diving for a touchdown with the ball in his left hand. In the end zone, because someone's going to splat it out of his hand, and it's going to be a, turnover. You're going to be kicking the ball away. Instead of getting 7 points, you're going to be punting the ball. You're going to be kicking off. And especially when you do it once, guess what? It's a copycat league. People are going to say, oh, he's diving with his left hand, knock it out of his hands when he tries again. And that's what happened last year. So, anyways, to end this show, I do hope Derek Carr does use his legs more. And I think with Mariota there, it's going to push him to do just that. So that's the good news. I think if you're a Raider fan, you should be happy with this draft. Yes, there are a lot of questionable moves, like, the 19th pick. But who cares? You got a guard. Obviously, that's weird. But that's later on in the draft. Well, we don't know what's going to happen to those guys anyways. They got good players when they could. They played the board pretty well, after. Remember, they didn't have a second-round pick. So they played the board pretty well. Like I said, Edwards is a good pickup. Bowden, I always say his name. That's a good pickup. I always say his name wrong. So they got a lot of good guys on that team. They got Henry Ruggs, who with his speed, he is going to be able to burn people. He really is. And like I said, that is going to help out Renfrow and Waller, everyone. It's going to help out the whole entire team. Now it's up to John Gruden, guys. This guy has to deliver. It's been way too long since this team has had a meaningful playoff game. I know they had one in 2016, but let's remember, Connor Cook was the quarterback, and the Raiders stood no chance. It's been a long time since this football team has had a meaningful playoff game. This is their first year in Vegas. Hopefully everything goes fine with this corona COVID-19 and we can get back to normal and we can play football. Now, I do think some of the OTAs will be canceled. And I do think that's, by the way, a big reason why Derek Carr is still there, because they don't know what's going to happen in the offseason. It's too risky of a move to actually bring in a new quarterback. I wouldn't do it, to be honest. You might as well let him play. He knows the system. And next season, by the way, you save more money if you have to get rid of him. But give him one more chance. Surround him with weapons. We don't know what's going to happen with this corona stuff. What if it goes through training camp and you have a short season? It's too hard. You can't have more than 15 people together. It's just too many rules right now, and it's too hard to actually practice. The OTAs I know are going to get, I know will get delayed. They will. It's going to happen. I'm more worried about actual training camp. So hopefully things do go back to normal, and it won't be that big of a deal when it happens. But Jon Gruden has to do better at coaching. And also, my other big gripe here is Paul Guenther. I think Rod Marinelli right now is waiting in the wings to steal Paul Guenther's job. I happen to know, by the way, Rod Marinelli is making most of those defensive selections. Gruden's not going to Guenther anymore. He's going to Marinelli. And that guy wants to get better. And Paul Guenther, I think his defense has been too complicated. I think he's putting the wrong guys in different spots. I mean, let's remember this guy kept putting Reggie Nelson out there. You know, this is the guy who wanted Leon Hall on a team. It's stupid. Rod Marinelli comes in. Next thing you know, you got Corey Littleton. You got, all these guys that are so much better than what Paul Guenther has been getting since he was there. So I do think Paul Guenther is on the hot seat. I think that defense better perform good this season, or they are going to ditch his whole entire scheme and make it more of a basic 4-3, just basic scheme. Let the players do what they got to do type deal, because that's what Marinelli would do. And that's, in my opinion, that's what they need. LaMarcus Joyner looks lost out there. Most of those guys look lost out there. Go back and watch the games last season. Watch that defense. And like I said, I have a big problem with that defensive line. I see P.J. Hall with his hands on his hips. There's no penetration. Mo Hurst, same thing. Not really doing much. Sometimes Mo Hurst will do something. But Jonathan Hankins, he doesn't really do much anyways. He kind of sits there. Now they got Collins in there. Like I said, now they can actually do something. I think Hurst is pretty good. But I think Hall is terrible. I think Hankins doesn't do much besides stop the run. So now you got Collins. You got Crosby. Like I said, you got Nassib. You're going to get better on a defensive line, and the linebackers are a huge upgrade. This team is looking good for you guys. Be happy with the draft. Be happy with the free agency. Things are looking up for the Las Vegas Raiders. Don't worry about the noise. I know the Raiders reached with the 19th pick. We can't do nothing about it. All we can hope is that guy's decent enough. You know what I mean? He's okay. That's all we can hope for. And if he's not that good, guess what? Root for Trayvon Mullins to be really awesome so you never even see Arnett on the field. That's all you have to do. Or Isaiah Johnson or someone, anyone. Who cares? They're going to be fine at the end of the day because they have good linebackers, defensive line got better, and their offense got so much speed and so much better overnight that offense is going to be able to score touchdowns, which this team really needs badly. They're going to be able to score touchdowns instead of kicking field goals or missing field goals. So I think it's a good news if you are a Raiders fan. We shall see. All right, guys, thank you for listening. My name is Stephen Michaels. This is the Raiders Daily Podcast.